Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's terribly backlit. I'm trying a new angle in my office. I don't quite know how it's going to work here recording in my office. This is going to be my 4th video this week. I'm going to be doing a total of 5, but it's been an exciting week. I went to a concert, I'm doing my normal 3 albums, and then Black Country New Road released a new song yesterday, Chaos Space Marine. Now listen, I don't cover new songs from every single band. If I want to talk about a new song, it's not because it's important, or it's not because it's culturally relevant or anything like that. It's because I really want to. It means I am very excited about a project, okay? There's not many acts that I do this for. I do it for Billie Eilish, I do it for Kanye, and it turns out I do it for Black Country New Road. I wasn't planning on this, I got an email in my inbox saying that they just released their new album, or it's going to be released and you can pre-order it, and I pre-ordered it instantly. Thank you, Patreon. You gave me the money to order their new album, and this new song came out, and I heard it, and I just instantly wanted to talk about it. So first of all, just before I even talk about the song, it's what I do when I talk about, hip-hop and the great renaissance that we're having with hip-hop and Griselda and all that. I mean, we know that we're in the middle of this post-punk moment, right? And a lot of people are associating it with the Windmill Club and everything, and I do think a lot of it's quite British. But just in general, let's just appreciate this moment that we're in, where all these great albums have come out this year, and where we're listening to all this great, interesting, avant-garde, forward-thinking, forward-moving rock and roll, okay? Part of the reason I do this channel is to stay flexible in my mind, and songs like this, bands like this, prove to me that we are not in a dead rock and roll state. So let's talk about Chaos Space Marine, right? Let's talk about it, and I want to break it into music and words, That's the easiest way to do it. That's what we have, music and words. Now, music. It's tempting to see this as a big departure from their first album, primarily because it just seems a little bit cleaner, it seems a little bit catchier, a little bit easier to listen to, sort of less dramatic time signature changes, sort of less dramatic dynamics, maybe less sort of cynical in its lyricism and the way it's sung, but I think it's very much in keeping. Primarily, it feels like a continuation, a growth of their previous album with the precise musicianship, right? I mean, that's the thing is, how do you make music that is very precise without feeling too technical, right? I make the argument that Black Midi, which is often considered to be a better band than Black Country New Road, is right on that line and is sometimes overly technical at the expense of the emotion of the music. Here we have this very precise musicianship, but it's very playful. And that's the thing about Black Country New Road that I like from their first album and from here is they seem like a bunch of young people having fun making good music. And the way it's playful is playing with this, what I would call very dense dynamics. So the entire song is filled with moments of a lot of musicians playing at once, 10 musicians playing at once, and then cutting out, and then having just one instrument play, a piano or a saxophone, etc., and then everything coming back in. And in that sort of pause, in that silence, there's also a sort of shift to this time signature to where the whole thing doesn't have a straight 4/4 beat all the way down. And that's the thing, is there too many musicians? I don't think so. Is it overly kind of cute like this? I don't think so. But if I were being unkind, I might say it was. What's nice is when the vocals start, it really pairs back to just, this, first of all, the song is a very odd construction. If you look up the lyrics on Lyric Genius, it'll say, verse 1, chorus, second verse, outro, but there isn't really any of that. I mean, the first verse is extremely long, the chorus is never repeated, so why is it a chorus, not just the second part? The second verse is just a repetition of the same line over and over again, and then the outro musically is basically the rest of the same as the verse, except just played in a slightly different manner, right? So the structure of it is quite odd. What I love is the opening structure, where you have the vocals start and it's just a piano, almost like he's playing chopsticks on piano, and then some strings and eventually guitars, and by the end it just gets richer and richer, elements weaving in and cutting out, That's what it is. It feels like they weave in and then they cut out drastically, right? So as opposed to jumping in and then jumping out, having feel, it's more like, right? Weaving in, cutting out. In a way, it feels very orchestral as well. I don't edit, so I'm leaving in me saying as way. It's very orchestral as way. It's very orchestral as well. Just the whole thing feels like it might have been written out on an orchestra sheet with the different parts coming in, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did that, if this wasn't actually fully written out in full music tablature. I love how the chorus is an explosion, or at least the second part, an explosion of sounds. There's just very loud saxophone. And the post-chorus has everyone kind of working together in these different chords, and again, cutting out to the guitar. The second verse is, you know, not too different. You know, like, it's not quite as ornate as the first. You know, there's less lyrics, and it seems like there's a little bit less of these dynamics happening here. And then the outro ends up being the same chords, like I said, the same basic rhythms, but it's done like an outro. Like, it's made to sound like an outro, not like the rest of the song, right? And then finally, we have just the last couple notes. You know, after some piano all the way throughout is quite strong here, just kind of a jazzy outro moment. Then we get to the lyrics. Some of my favorite lyrics of theirs. It manages to do their sort of dry, sardonic, witty, super smart, too smart, super smart, disaffected mode. But it starts off with about England being mine. Now, I don't know if this is, you know, Smith's quote, you know, England is mine and owes me a living, or kind of a Coldplay thing, you know, this is when we used to rule the world. But this song and this whole album feels a lot like the metaphor of a musician being a soldier, right? And particularly like a British musician being like a soldier who's sent off to America. That's what it feels like. I don't know if that's what it's about, but he talks about going to America and going across New York state lines. And, you know, it's the sense that, you know, you watch all these documentaries about the Stones, about the Beatles, whoever, that it's the sense of like conquering America. And, you know, obviously they haven't conquered America yet, because if I had been a little bit quicker, I would have been able to buy tickets to see them playing in Philadelphia for $18, okay? Damn. The problem with not like being a college student, being a college professor, is you're not quite as on top of things when it comes to buying tickets. And then we get to the title of the song, Chaos Space Marine. Now, I'm not really into Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games, but I almost was, because I had a friend who was really into Warhammer, which according to him is like the real deal. Like Dungeons and Dragons is kind of like cheesy, and like if you're really into the serious stuff, you should be into Warhammer. For the sake of engagement, why don't you tell me what's better, D&D or Warhammer? A friend of mine actually directed a movie about the art of Dungeons and Dragons. It's a pretty good movie. So Warhammer is, if possible, the nerdier of the two major brands of role-playing games. You know, like sitting down and rolling die and having a dungeon master and all that stuff. So Chaos Space Marine is a figure in that. So already just the name, Chaos Space Marine, is fascinating. Also maybe makes you think of aliens as well. But really what it is, you know, it's one of those games where you get these little metal miniatures and then you paint them so they look cool, and then you play out an entire game. So Chaos Space Marines, I did a little bit of research on this. Like they abandoned like the humans, mankind, right? Like that faction, and dedicated themselves to sort of chaos. So this sort of unaligned, chaotic nature is very popular. Apparently, this is one of the most popular, if not the most popular class of being in Warhammer, because everyone wants to have the training and the firepower of a space marine, but without the allegiance and without the structure of the military around you. So that's a great metaphor. It's a nerdy metaphor, okay? But hey, Led Zeppelin was mostly talking about Tolkien the entire time, right? This is very much in that tradition, I would say, where we have like this great metaphor of like, you know, being kind of military, being kind of conquering. That's sort of the concept of these rock and roll acts who try to go to America and try and break into the American market, and not actually in a military system, but in a chaotic system. Take my little metal hand, he says in there. It's really quite funny. So I think musically and personally, you know, the first album, a lot of it's so dry and ironic and witty. It's nice to have a sort of personal sense of like their position in music. Like, what are they going through? What are they trying to do? The chorus, the never repeated chorus, bury the hatchet between the window and the kingdom of men. That's what the Space Marines have abandoned. The second verse feels kind of like a filler, like a temporary verse. In the time you will find these things take up. Hey, Black Country New Road, the 11 of you, are you planning on writing a new lyric there? Because this like kind of blank line feels out of place. It's the one sort of down part of the song, I would say, is that it doesn't have the dynamism or the interest of the rest of the lyrics. And then we get to the beautiful outro, where it's talking about like going home. And it goes home, quote, Billie Eilish style. I think this is a fascinating idea. I think this is in reference to the way that Billie Eilish often goes back to her home and records, right, with her brother, right? I don't think this is a parody. I don't think this is making fun of Billie Eilish. I think this is talking about the fact that she, you know, goes out on these big tours and ends up going home and being in a kind of familiar setting, right? After having gone through the terrible trauma of fame and the difficulty of performing and being adored and all that, she then goes home and she's like back home Billie Eilish style. I think it's funny that they make a reference to this because on their last album, Sunglasses, they made direct reference to Kanye. Leave Kanye out of this. And I don't think that was an attack on Kanye either. So what fun it is that the two acts that I always review their songs whenever they released a song, Kanye and Billie Eilish, have been directly mentioned by this band, which has just joined that group, that unofficial group. You know, I call them Tuesday musicians because it used to be new music came out on Tuesday, which is why I bought the Blueprint on 9/11 before I knew that the planes fell, the towers fell. You know, like Tuesday, you know, like you're there midnight on Monday to pick up the album. This is one of those bands. As it ends, it has these weird sort of oh yeahs at the end, a little bit incongruous. Maybe this is a sort of commentary all about the nature of rock and roll and about what they're doing, and oh yeah is kind of a simple, simplistic chant to say. But there it is. It's like 3.5 minutes, all that stuff going on. I've now talked for this 3.5 minute song for like 12 minutes. Beautiful image of a musician as a sort of chaotic soldier. I really like that image. The music is great, lots of violin and just all this dense level, even lots of, I think still going back to the klezmer again and the saxophone and the winds. It's astounding to imagine all this music being so well controlled, so well produced, and so well polished that when it comes out, it just feels right. It feels like a correct amount of music, a correct number of instruments, and it's very exciting. So there's my review. I'm so backlit. You can tell me in the comments if this wasn't even worth watching because I look like an alien. We bring you peace. Okay. Oh yeah, this is the Times Literary Supplement. Very good, by the way. It's great. My dad subscribed to it for as long as I've been alive. There's a letter to the editor by somebody who's at my college, which is pretty cool. And then Skye Cleary is a philosopher who writes a lot about Simone de Beauvoir. She's in New York. I've corresponded with her before. And she's got my name too. So she could also have a Professor Skye channel. But man, her stuff on Simone de Beauvoir is really great. Look it up online. All right, until next time. Hey, you know what? There's a lot of other music review channels out there, but who else is going to tell you to look up a philosopher about Simone de Beauvoir? Okay, just maybe someone else will. I gotta stop talking. Here's the camera.